Welcome again to A Shortstop with a Shortstop. Today we're going to talk a little bit about blessings. In Acts chapter 20 and verse 35, it says, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And there's some Major League Baseball players that when I was coming up to the major leagues that were just absolutely a blessing to me. You know, I always mention Joe Morgan, Darrell Evans, Willie McCovey, Gary LaVelle, Atlee Hammaker, Jeff Leonard, Frank Robinson, Manny Trio, and the list can go on. When I first came up to the big leagues, they would tell me as we traveled where the restaurants that were going to be open late at night, where the best place to eat breakfast was. And let me tell you something, that's a big deal right there, knowing where to go eat. Because a lot of times you get in there and if you were a rookie or something, you wouldn't know where to go. But you know, the pitchers, Atlee and Gary LaVelle, before the game started, they'd tell me which way they were going to pitch certain hitters, and they wanted me to shade them either to the left or to the right, and that was a big thing. But it turned out to be a blessing for me because it gave me more experience. And Joe Morgan and Willie McCovey the same way, different approaches to different pitchers when you're at the plate hitting, and it helped you to grow as a player. But they were all blessings to me. If we look in Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 3, it says, all spiritual blessings are in Jesus Christ. But what do I mean by that? In Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 7, it says it's where we get redemption. And it's where we can be forgiven. But we can't be forgiven outside of Christ. And in Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 11, it says we can have a blessing of inheritance. And what do I mean by that? That means that we can go to heaven. We can inherit heaven by becoming a New Testament Christian and being in Christ. In Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 18, it says we have a blessing to be able to have access to God. What do I mean by access to God? It means we can pray to Him. We can let Him know what our thoughts are, some of the things that we need, some of the things that we're praying for other people that are sick or in need, and try to be a blessing to them in that way and to yourself. There was a man in Acts chapter 8, and his name was Philip, and he was a great blessing to a man that was a eunuch. He was from the country of Ethiopia, and he had traveled from Ethiopia all the way to Jerusalem in a chariot. But this man was a very intelligent man because he was the treasurer for Queen Candace. She was queen of Ethiopia, but he took care of all of her finances, all of her money. But yet he was a very, very religious man. He was a Jew, and he come to Jerusalem on a Jewish holiday to worship God. But on his way back, he was in his chariot, and he was reading the Old Testament. He was reading in Isaiah chapter 53. And it was talking about a lamb being led to the slaughter, and he didn't understand it. And Philip, there was an angel that told him to go and talk to this eunuch. And when Philip saw him, he saw that he was reading the Bible, and he asked him if he understood what he was reading. And he told Philip, how can I unless somebody guides me? And so Philip, at that point, started preaching unto him Jesus Christ. And if we look at the text itself, it says, and they went along the road in verse 36, and it says that they came to some water. And the eunuch says, what prevents me from being baptized? But what I want you to look at here, all the way up to verse 36, there is no place there that they said that they had even been talking about baptism. But we know that if Philip joined himself and was preaching Jesus Christ to him, that baptism was going to be talked about. And then we look in verse 36, and the eunuch says, look, here is water, what hindereth me from being baptized? And then Philip says, if you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, thou mayest. And the eunuch made one of the greatest confessions I've ever heard. And he said, I believe with all my heart that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Then it says they both went down into the water, and Philip baptized eunuch, and the eunuch went on his way rejoicing. Now, it doesn't say any more about the eunuch, but this is just Johnnie LeMaster talking here. But I believe that when he got back to Ethiopia, that he was a blessing to all those people that were there. Because I think he went on his way rejoicing. He was happy to be able to tell other people about Jesus Christ and how to become a Christian. And this time of year, a lot of people are receiving gifts. But as I talked about when we first started here in Acts 20 and verse 35, it's more blessed to give than receive. And Philip gave to this eunuch, but all those major league players that I talked about earlier gave to me. But what can we give back? We can teach people how to become a Christian. And that would be a blessing beyond reproach. It would be a blessing that we couldn't even count how much money it would be worth. One of the greatest blessings that a person could do is to become a New Testament Christian. And you would be a blessing to yourself. You would be a blessing to your family. But most of all, you would be a blessing to God. Thank you again for being with a Shortstop with a Shortstop.